Buddy, KP Alexander for the Rabbit Dogs Unleashed, and today is Monday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2022. Today I'm going to review a movie I saw this past weekend, Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson film that came out December 25th, I think, to cash in on the fact that the Academy Award nomination committee can't think that many months in advance, so they have to release something right at the end of the year so it could get accolades. And this film has gotten many accolades and nominations. I think 3 Academy Award nominations. Okay, so let me get into the movie. Okay, it was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, who I love. He also did cinematography in this film. I love Boogie Nights of his. There Will Be Blood. Some of his other films I really like. Magnolia. Hard 8 was his first film, I believe. Was good. He has very few missteps. I mean, there's a few missteps. I didn't. Inherent Vice, a lot of people bring up. I actually didn't mind that. I didn't think that was that bad, but that kind of falls into not his best work. And I have to say, like this film is not up there with his best work, but I'm going to review it now. Okay, so this movie is a coming-of-age story set in 1973. It's about a boy, Gary Valentine, who falls in love with a older woman. He's 15. She's 25. He chats her up, and I gotta say, he's got game. For a 15-year-old, he's got game. So he, I guess, tries to pick her up, and she's, I don't know, a little bit. It seems like she's a little attracted to him in the beginning, even though he's way younger. So she meets him for, I guess, a drink, a dinner at a bar, restaurant, and they start a friendship. She's played, her name in the film is Alana Kane. She's played by this girl named Alana Haim. I don't know. He's played by Cooper Hoffman, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. Philip Seymour Hoffman did a lot of films with Paul Thomas Anderson, and I'm getting the indication that before Philip Seymour Hoffman died, he said, hey, take care of my son. Put him in some movies because I don't want him to get a regular 9-to-5 job. Who does? I mean, if I was a big star, I'd say, take care of my daughter. I don't want her to have to get a real job and go to college or anything like the rest of those schmucks out there, you know. So anyway, and the girl, Alana Kane, played by Alana Haim, I guess is part of a band called, I never heard of them. Never heard of them. I guess her what is it? Her members of the band are her sisters, and they're in the movie with her. So are her parents. I guess they're all friends with Paul Thomas Anderson. The whole film is Paul Thomas Anderson just saying, I'm going to hire all my friends I know. I'm going to hire Maya Rudolph, who's my partner in real life. I'm going to probably put my kids in some roles, whatever. I'm going to put people who I know. It's kind of like a friend of mine who was on a championship softball team with people who were great softball players, but he wasn't really friends with. The next year, he said, I want to manage a softball team with my friends. And he managed the beer balls, and we came in last place. We were the worst team that ever played the game of softball. It's pretty bad when I'm playing shortstop. That's pretty fucking bad. Because I shouldn't be playing shortstop. I'm not that good enough. That's how good I was compared to some of the members on the team. Anyway, with that being said, this just seems like Paul Thomas Anderson, you know, hiring all his relatives and friends to be in the movie. Nepotism at its best, right? So anyway, this film, it shows, and the kid, Gary Valentine, is based on this guy. Let me get his name right here. This guy he's based on a real guy because there's a scene in the movie in the beginning where he goes to York City because he's got to do something with the film he was in called Mine, Yours, and Ours. If anybody remembers that film, it was a 1968 film with Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball. He plays one of the kids. Henry Fonda had 10 kids, Lucille Ball had 8 kids. Their spouses had died, and they get together and they get married, and there's 18 kids in the family. Okay, yours, mine, and ours. Anyway, and I guess she gets pregnant again, and they have a 19th. Anyway, whatever. He was in that film, and he's now a producer who owns a production company with Tom Hanks. It's one big clusterfuck in Hollywood. They're all just helping each other out, right? So anyway, this guy, I guess, has stories about how he started that, and then when his career fizzled, his acting career fizzled, he became a salesman of waterbeds. Then when the gas oil embargo happened, he got out of waterbeds and he got into arcade because California made arcade legal, made pin machines legal, and he became owner of some arcades, I guess. So. And then he ended up getting into producing films, and this is why he's kind of known to Paul Thomas Anderson, and this is kind of based on him. Even though the character it's based on, this guy who was in the movie U.S. Mine Hours, was 21 in 1973, not 15. And when he was in U.S. Mine Hours, he was probably 15, but that was 6 years earlier. It was filmed 5 or 6 years earlier than the events in this movie. Okay. So this is like based on a younger version of him. So if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense to a lot of us because it's like, how would a 15-year-old kid be owning businesses? I'm not even sure if it's legal for a 15-year-old kid to own businesses that he's running and having other kids work there. I don't know. I would think that there be some kind of maybe restrictions or something. Again, I would think. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, even though it's showing that in the film, it didn't happen. He was 21 in 1973, so he was probably in his 20s when he was owning these businesses. But Paul Thomas Anderson just chose to make the kid 15 and the goal 25. Now, I think you could have made the goal any age. I mean, really. In real life, Cooper Hoffman was 17 when this was filmed, I believe, and the goal was 28 when this was filmed. And they try to make her look as young as possible. She's very childish, very immature. She lives with her father and, you know, her parents because she's kind of arrested development. They show that. And he's very mature for his age. So when I first saw the posters for this, I thought maybe she was 21, he was 17. That would be more, you know, I could relate to that a little more, and I could go with that a little more. This I don't go with. He's 15, she's 25. I don't go with it. I think it's kind of creepy. It's icky. I don't think it. I kind of feel bad for her because she makes a fool of herself in this movie. Not the actress, but just that role is just, it's kind of like she's hanging out with a bunch of kids. And she even asks one of her sisters in the movie, is it weird that I hang around with Gary and his friends? And she goes, no. Yeah, it is fucking weird. You're driving around a truck with Gary's brother who's like 11. I mean, I know when I was 15 and me and my friends and we're hanging out, driving on bicycles around the neighborhood, no 25-year-old guy or girl or anybody were hanging around anywhere near us. They wanted nothing to do with us. Even a 21-year-old wanted nothing to do with us, let alone 25. So, you know, a lot of people bringing up this, you know, part of the movie as being something that turns them off. Yeah, and it's not needed. I don't think it needed that. I think it could have had him 17, her 21, and it would have been a relationship you can almost root for. Because just think about reversing the roles. A 15-year-old going to a 25-year-old guy. This wouldn't be released. This wouldn't be releasable. They'd say we can't release this. This is condoning pedophilia. Statutory rape. No. And, you know, I'm going to bring up the big question. I'm going to fucking address the elephant in the room. What happens after they get together at the end? I hope the spoilers here, but this is not really a movie that has spoilers. It's just where it's going, and you don't really care at the end. But in real life, wouldn't it be like someone would say to her, "Hey, you can't date a 15-year-old boy." When she starts holding his hand and going out with him, someone's going to say, you got to stop this shit, or you're going to end up in jail. It's not cool. His mother's a bad mother, obviously. His father's nowhere to be found. This seems like it's made by a 16-year-old. That's what it seems like to me, because it's like Paul Thomas Anderson made this like, it's kind of a kid's film. There's no adults around. And yeah, he's kind of, I guess you could make films like that. Like he said he based this film on Fast Times at Ridgemont High and American Graffiti. Two films I put on my top 10 of best high school films of all time. And I love both those films. And yeah, I could see that, how there's no real adults that much in this film, and no parental guidance that much, is at a minimum. And it's a lot of kids hanging out, having fun. And you could have made that. I mean, this reminded me also of Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused, how the kids go out one night and they're all having fun. And even the pre-high school kids, the kids who were going into high school, the middle school kids, it was called junior high when I was a kid, going 8th and 9th grade. Those kids were like 12, 13, maybe 14, when they were going into high school, and it had them like making out with chicks, and that was a big thing. You weren't having sex yet at that age, at least I wasn't. You were making out with a girl at best, like, oh my God, and you were grabbing, maybe you get a cop a feel. And this film kind of had that element in it, but with a 25-year-old girl. So to me, it was not needed, and it kind of took away from the film, I thought. Okay. Another thing that they bring up is there's a character played by John Michael Higgins, I think his name is. He's a great actor. I loved him in The Breakup. I loved him he was in Couples Retreat. He's been in a bunch of films. He's been in some Christopher Guest films. Great actor. And he's good here too, but he plays an owner of some Japanese restaurants, and he has 2 Japanese wives in this, and it's kind of offensive. Of course, I don't care. I think it's, I'm not offended by it, because I'm not, I don't care, but I can understand how others will be offended by it. And in the film, he's talking with his wife, and someone's talking to him about the restaurant, and he's talking with his wife, who's part owner with him, and then he'll go, how you think about, and he uses, like, he speaks English, but he does it in a Japanese accent. And why? I don't know. Maybe, and I thought, and then she speaks back to him in Japanese. Then he tells the woman his concerns that you would think would be translated from his wife. Like he goes, what you think? And then I'm not even going to try to, imitate the Japanese language. That would probably be offensive. Even though I think, what you think is pretty offensive. So, yeah, and then she comes back and she speaks Japanese, and he goes, do you think there's enough mention of our food in here? Like that you would think that's what he got. And then a couple of scenes later, he does it again to a new wife. What you think? And he made this sound like just completely inappropriate. And someone says, what did she say? He goes, well, it's hard to say. I don't speak Japanese. Was that comic relief? I don't know, but it wasn't. It was. We laughed. Me and my father. I saw it with my father. We kind of chuckled, not because of it was funny to make fun of Japanese, but it was so inappropriate and uncomfortable. I was chuckling because the total wackiness of it and over the top. So I was like, yeah. I was like, not because he was making fun of Japanese, because it was so inappropriate. And again, that didn't need to be in there either. And then they had a few big name actors like Sean Penn in this, and Tom Waits in the scene where they didn't have to be in this. He was playing a guy named Jack Holden, who was definitely supposed to be William Holden, but I guess he didn't have the rights to use the name William Holden, so he just said Jack Holden, and he didn't have to. I guess they needed a few big names up there, so they put Sean Penn's name. Even though he's only in one scene. I mean, it was okay. It was an interesting scene, I guess, and it also shows you how when this Alana character is with him, she looks completely too young for him. Yeah, she is, because Sean Penn's 60 in real life. And no, I think he's 61 now. Probably 59 when this was made, and she was 28. So, yeah. But you know something? At least that relationship would be legal and appropriate as opposed to her relationship with him. So I know you could show Sean Penn with her and show how, oh, she is way too young for him. Yeah, but guess what? That's legal. The other one, when she's hanging out with a 15-year-old, is not legal. So you're not going to fool me on that one. I don't know if that's what his intention was, but it did look like she was really way younger than Sean Penn, which she is. But if he would have married her in real life, people would be like, okay, he's going after a younger. If he married her in real life, or Paul Thomas Anderson married her in real life or something, people wouldn't think twice about it. But if she's dating a 15-year-old, yeah, that's going to be creepy. And that's, again, going back to the original, what problem I have with many people have about this film. Okay. So they have Sean Penn in the scene, and later on they have Bradley Cooper playing a great imitation of a crazy John Peters. But why did they have to have that? Because, well, the guy said he did deliver a waterbed to John Peters. At least that's what he says. Was it true? Maybe. Is it probably like it was in a film? Definitely probably not. No. So anyway, he's delivering the waterbed to John Peters, and John Peters, for some reason, has to say to Cooper Hoffman, the character, he says, say my girlfriend's name, Barbara Streisand, and he couldn't. Why even fucking put her name in there? Is it because Paul Thomas Anderson's friends with her and he asked her to be in the movie and she didn't want to be because she's a lazy hack who hasn't done shit in fucking years? Even when she did Meet the Fockers, she dialed her performance in because she could fucking care less about making movies anymore, which is fine. I never liked her anyway, as you could tell. But why do we have to say her name? Why do we have to hear him? It's just, why? I don't believe, I'm sitting there like uncomfortable and I'm like, why do you have to say her name 5 times? That doesn't have anything to do with the story. You could have taken that whole, I actually liked that scene. I thought it was funny because it was so unexpected and so over the top. John Peters, or what you would, think of John Peters as, like just this crazy, guy. Everybody has a story about John Peters, but I didn't think that really necessarily had to be in the movie, but I'm okay with it. But the movie is like a bunch of vignettes, a bunch of scenes that don't really, I guess they all draw into but the Sean Penn scene didn't have to be there. The John Peters scene didn't have to be there. And, some people are saying, oh, well, it was, that scene was the best scene in the movie with they had a truck that ran out of gas. And I'm like, I guess maybe that's the only tension that was in the film. You thought she might back into another car. I wasn't really on the edge of my seat on that scene because I couldn't really care less. So, the movie had no, it's just, there was like 10 subplots, like the Sean Penn and the John Peters thing. But there was no main plot. So I think that's how I like to describe this film. 10 subplots with no main plot. It wasn't going anywhere. And even when it got to where it was going, I was like, good, great. Now what's going to happen, later on when somebody sees them holding hands and goes, what the fuck you doing? What's going to happen then? there was a scene in the movie, a couple scenes, when she looks at her life and says, I gotta grow up, I gotta stop hanging out with these teenage kids, which is a good scene. And she goes and she joins a mayoral campaign. This guy's running for mayor. I thought that was a good scene. She gets in there and she gets into this guy who she used to know. I don't know if she used to date this guy, but he's perfect for her. I was kind of hoping she gets with that guy or the mayoral candidate who she seemed to have a connection with. And I'm like, okay, either one of these guys would be great for her to hook up with. I was like, good, she's growing up. And I hoped at the end she would have hooked up with one of those guys, and then it would have said, then it would have showed her saying goodbye to, to Gary, or maybe they could still be friends, and it would say something like, in years, Gary became the godfather of her kids, or something like that. They still remain friends, but she, knew she was too old, and she got married to an adult. But no, it didn't go that way, which I hoped it would have, but of course it didn't. And just when I was getting happy towards the end, you hope they were together. No, I didn't hope they were together. No, I didn't hope they ended together. When you drew that thing about how joining the mayoral campaign, I was happy she was joining that. I wanted her to get away from Gary. Others might think, oh, conflict. Oh, I hope she gets back with Gary. No, I was the opposite. I was glad. I wanted her to get away from Gary. Because that's statutory rape. That's a jail sentence. So anyway, she goes and she's in, the offices. And this, I said to my father, he didn't realize it when it was happening. He's not in the movies as I am. I saw such a ripoff of Taxi Driver, okay? And I guess it was an homage to Taxi Driver, but it was more like, hey, remember that Better film? Remember that film? That Better film? It's like the Joker was supposed to be like Taxi Driver. Like, remember that much better film we made called Taxi Driver? Yeah. Even though the Joker was a pretty good film, I have to say. But this film, not nearly as good as either of those. So anyway, there's a scene where there's a guy, he walks in, he's got long hair, he looks around, and then he walks across the street and he's sitting there watching their campaign office. And Alana sees this and she goes to the guy who helped to get the job. Hey, that guy who's been watching, he's been sitting out there. Just exactly almost the same dialogue as Sybil Shepherd in Taxi Driver talking with Albert Brooks about how, hey, look at that taxi driver. He's been watching us. And it was Robert De Niro just checking her out. So I guess, she goes out there to talk with him, but in Taxi Driver, he went out there to talk with him, and then Robert De Niro drove away. She goes out there to talk to this guy, and this guy and her have a few words, and then the guy comes out, and then the guy walks away or something. I think maybe, he's checking her out, because that's what Taxi Driver was. Robert De Niro's character, Travis Bickle, was checking out Sybil Shepherd. Okay, so I thought maybe it's that. And then, okay, but no, it's not that. It's something else. And there's another guy who you hoped he was going to, I'd rather hook up with this guy. I mean, hook up with one of these guys, one of these three guys, these three adults in a movie. No. She didn't hook up with any of them. She went back to, why would you hang out with adults? And then, I guess it shows at the end where the adults, they used her. But that's life. That's what, and I guess one of the takeaways from the film is adults are evil and bad, and kids are innocent and fun. So hang out with them as long as you can. If you're 25, sure, hang out with a 15-year-old and his 11-year-old brother. Sure, hang out with them. That's okay. I'm thinking about hanging out with my 13-year-old daughter and her friends because, hey, they're innocent and they're fun. And, adults are so fucking killjoys is what they are. I sure hope this is not what's to come from PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson, because, dude, I like your work, but you gotta really get the fuck out of this. You can't make shit like this anymore, please. Please have this be a misstep. Because, and I don't know how this got an Academy Award nomination for Best Movie. Best Movie? This is 2 hours and 10 minutes I'm never going to get back. It could have been an hour and a half. And I could walk down a movie theater going, well, that's at least I didn't waste too much time. Oh, I mean, my father fell asleep twice in this film. I mean, really. I mean, he's 82, so maybe that had something to do with it. I was actually sitting back, and this was not a great movie theater. It had leather seats, but it didn't have the the leg up. So I took off my shoes, and I'm watching this, and I'm like, let me put this over here like this so I could be better. I thought it was going to end that scene. It keeps going. There's no, when is this going to, and the ending I like better than the beginning, but, and it seems like Gary never works. No, he never goes to school. Excuse me. He's working the whole film. He's setting up deals, but he never goes to school. I guess school doesn't care if he's there or not. I don't know. And she's, and she knows there's a scene where she brings home a co-star of Gary's who was in the film Yours, Mine, and Ours. And I guess he's supposed to be older than Gary, maybe 18. I don't know how old. I know Tim Matheson in the movie was like 20 when the movie was made, something like that. So yeah, this kid might have been 20, but he was still younger than her. And there was a weird scene that, again, had nothing to do with the rest of the movie, where she's dating this kid, and Gary sees them, and he gets jealous. And then, because it just shows he's just there for Gary to get jealous of. And she dates this kid because I guess he's Jewish, even though I didn't get the Jewish vibe from him, even though I don't know. I guess she knew. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is Cooper Hoffman? Well, Cooper Hoffman in real life isn't Jewish. Maybe he's supposed to be Jewish. Gary Valentine, maybe. I don't know. Is Valentine a Jewish name? I don't know. Maybe he's supposed to be Jewish also. I don't know. But anyway, this kid went to her house and met the father, and the father says, "Say the thing you say when you're Jewish at a dinner table." And he said, "Oh, I can't. I'm an atheist." And what? You were raised Jewish? You're Jewish. He goes, "Well, I was raised Jewish, but I became an atheist because I don't believe in, or whatever, in God or whatever." And that makes sense. That's perfectly okay. And then the father, you could tell, was visibly upset about the whole thing. And then, she went outside with him, and, she said to him, "Well, what the hell do you have to do that for?" My mom, he said, "I'm an atheist, And then she was like, how does your penis look?" And this was, how does your penis look? He goes, well, what do you mean? Are you circumcised? Yes. Well, then you're Jewish. I'm fucking circumcised. I'm Roman Catholic. It has nothing to fucking do with it. It depends when you were. My father was born in 1939. They didn't circumcise non-Jews in 1939. They only circumcised Jewish people in 1939. 1965, when I was born, they circumcised every kid. Okay? Most kids were circumcised automatically. And I'm glad I was, because my father's dick looks fucking weird. And I haven't seen it in years, but when I was younger and he taught me and my brother to take a shower, like, what the fuck is that thing, It was completely, mine was, well, okay, mine was this big, but his was, okay, much larger. But it was like, I had that extra, and I'm like, what the fuck is that, How many people watch the porn movie with a circumcised guy going, look at that fucking, what is that, a fucking armadillo? What the hell is that, So I'm glad I was circumcised, because I'm getting into circumcision rant here, which I shouldn't. But anyway, I don't know when they started circumcising everybody in hospitals. Maybe this kid supposed to be 20. Maybe he was born 19. Maybe he was born 10, 12 years before me. Does that mean, I don't know when they start circumcision? Because I know in my high school, most kids my age, I grew up, okay, there was a lot of Jews in my neighborhood. Not that many. There was more Christians than Jews, more Protestants and Catholics than there were Jews. And I don't remember an uncircumcised cock taking a shower in my high school. I don't remember looking at it too much, but I don't remember anything like, what the fuck is that, Okay, so anyway, just because he's circumcised doesn't, it didn't offend me, but made me question, wait a minute, I'm circumcised and I'm not Jewish, so that whole rant is just, and I don't understand what that had to do with anything, because I guess the father's Jew, but she doesn't act Jewish, and she's not very religious. I mean, I know there's people who say they're religious when maybe they are just to play the part, but she's not really religious. I mean, she doesn't really show, her religion in the movie, except for a talent agent saying you got a very Jewish nose, which is obvious. She does have a very Jewish nose, a nose that people would probably say is reminiscent of other Jewish people. I mean, not to be offended. I have, a Sicilian nose. This is the Sicilian nose. I'm part Sicilian, Irish, German, Lithuanian. This is a Sicilian nose right here. My father has a similar nose. It's bigger. His grandmother had a similar nose, but was bigger. So I think every generation it's getting smaller. But it was a Sicilian fucking nose, which is like my great-grandmother, it was starting here. Her nose was like her whole fucking face. If you said, John, you got a Sicilian nose. Ah, great, you're right, I do. Ah, John, you got Irish eyes. Thank you, I do. That's where I got my blue eyes from. Okay. So I don't think that was many Jewish people offended by this. I think this was, if anything, a pro-Jewish. No, but it was a lot of Jewish characters in this film, and best thing I can say about this film is the acting was good. Okay, I'll give it that. The cinematography, Paul Thomas Anderson's a master at filming films. He is. He made this look like it was made in the 70s. This also reminds me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where that was a love letter from Quentin Tarantino to the city of Los Angeles. This is a similar love letter from Paul Thomas Anderson to the city of Los Angeles. And if you ask me, I think I'm going to put Paul Thomas Anderson up there with Quentin Tarantino and probably Wes Anderson to a point. Wes Anderson does make some movies, I think. He's very pretentious. But these three filmmakers are probably some of the most important filmmakers in the last 30 years. And I know Quentin Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson have a close relationship. And it does. It seems like they're getting... They're not in competition, but it's a friendly rivalry, kind of like, oh, you made that, I'm going to make this. It's kind of like the Beach Boys and, well, not Beach, I'll say Brian Wilson and the Beatles. How they want to one-up each other during a certain couple years spread, because when Brian Wilson went crazy, the Beach Boys didn't continue that, because the Beach Boys... 1/100th the amount of talent Brian Wilson had. So Brian Wilson, yes, as soon as he went crazy, but before that, he had friendly rivalry. Like, he says great things about the Beatles to this day, and Paul McCartney says great things about Brian Wilson to this day. And it's the same thing about Paul Thomas Anderson and Quentin Tarantino. They say great things about each other, and they forever praise each other's films. But I don't know how Quentin Tarantino is going to look at this film. Maybe because he loves LA so much, he'll think it was great. And again, the cinematography, the filming, the streets, everything. And I looked closely to see if I could see a modern car. I didn't. And what I liked about this film also is, unlike films like maybe Dazed and Confused and American Graffiti. American Graffiti, not so much so. Dazed and Confused, definitely, without a doubt. Every car in Dazed and Confused looked like it was a restored hot rod from that time period, 1976. This took cars that, I don't know how they still have those cars, because normally why you have a lot of cool cars. I mean, he's driving a convertible GTO, which is, of course, like reminiscent of what you see when it goes back in time periods, because it's like those are the only cars that are still around. Nobody saved a fucking Econoline van from 1973. Nobody saved a station wagon from, well, they did. And they put him in this film, because this film's got... I was like, Dad, look at that fucking station wagon. I remember me and my friend, he was 2 years older than me. He was driving I was like 15. No, he was like 16. I was like 14. He was like, oh, come on. We jump in the back seat of his parents' station wagon. It was one of those. And I'm like, how do they still have that? Like, why would you keep that to this day? It was like when I was in Iceland a couple years ago. Some guy had classic plates in Iceland of a fucking Dodge Aries K from 1980. Why would you keep that in Iceland? Why would you, in such pristine shape, why would you do that? Why would you keep that car and say, I'm going to keep this garaged and keep in pristine shape. I'm going to put low mileage on it because one day this is going to be worth money. And probably not. But I'm glad they did it because you could put it in films like this, you know. This film from 73, there's no cars from, and there are probably some cars from 75 in there that they just drew in there. Like maybe somebody will not notice, you know. Yeah, okay, but I don't remember, you know, looking at it that closely, but I remember being impressed by, oh, wow, he's got all cars in there, and he's got all kinds of cars, not just, you know, not just the great GTOs, which are definitely in there. And there's a scene where John Peters is drawing around a fucking $500,000 Ferrari, or more like a $3 million Ferrari. And I'm like, oh, don't hit that with the truck. I'm not sure. Oh, that truck might not have been from 1973. I don't know. Maybe I can make a point about that. But everything else was, you know, the clothes they wore. And I like how they cast Cooper Hoffman because he's not. He looks like a teenager. He's got pock marks. Well, I still got him, and I'm 56, you know. But he's got like the acne, and he's a little chubby, you know. And yeah, he's not the classic Hollywood, but he had game. I gotta tell you, he had game. And yeah, but also he looked his age and. Again, getting back to the uncomfortableness of the why did you have to have her be 10 years older than him? Why couldn't you? And maybe this is when Paul Thomas Anderson was younger, he dreamed of dating an older woman. I don't know. And I heard the main guy, the guy it's based on, didn't have this kind of relationship with, you know, an older woman, like 10 years older than him when he was 15. Because when he was doing this stuff in 73, he was 21. So I don't know why he felt. I guess he had to cast Cooper Hoffman, so maybe that's why. But there was a lot of things, choices he didn't have to do, I felt, to make it. Dude, you could have put his age up 2 years. You could have put her age down 4 years, and it would have been, how many years apart? 4 years apart. That would have been more acceptable. 10 years apart, again, he's not going to be legal till 17, 18. Is 17 even legal? 18? 3 years, 2.5. I don't know. And she's pushing 30. You know, again, it goes back to what I always say about the younger generation now. She's in this band, her and her sisters, but they're all like, she's 28 in real life when this film was made. Her sisters are 30 and 32. I mean, they're living the pain. I mean, I don't know. Is Arrested Development back in 73 like it is now? These kids, it's like they're dressing like kids. They come across as kids. She's coming across as a kid. When my mother was fucking 28, my mother had 3 kids, all her kids already, and she was been married 4 years, and they had a house, and you know, all her kids were born. All her 3 kids she's gonna have for the rest of her life were born by the time she was 28. She had a house on Long Island. Okay, you know, she had been in a marriage for, you know, she had been married for 6, almost 7 years at that point. We are really getting very immature. Yeah, me wearing my daughter's softball, as a coach of my daughter's softball team, you know, I don't dress, my father always says you don't dress adult-like, and he's damn right about that. But I try to act like an adult. Are we just stuck in Arrested Development now? Because these sisters in this movie are being presented to us like they're young indie band or something. They're 30-something years old. They're not young. The Beatles were broken up by that point already. What the hell's going on? Is anybody doing anything in their 20s or just fucking sitting around? going, I'm gonna date fucking little boys. I just gotta bring these obvious. Am I the only one who's bringing up the fucking elephant in the room? He's right over there. He's staring at me. He's got his big tusk, and I'm not afraid of him. I think he's cute, but if he starts walking around, he's gonna do some damage. That's my point exactly. And what else was I gonna say about this film that just got to me? You know, things are just not. You know, nobody says, "Oh, you're 15, you have a business." Hey, well, why aren't you in school? They just show his school one day when he meets her. That's it. The rest of the time doesn't show his school. It just, you know, he's running these successful businesses. Yeah, when the real guy was 21, 22, even then you'd say, you're a young go-getter. If you're 15 and doing this, how many people are going to be like, I'm not buying a waterbed from a fucking kid? You know, and it's funny how John Peters said, yeah, you can make a film with me in it as long as you make a completely ridiculous version of me, you know? I mean, that added something to it, but, you know, and they made something about his maid or his houseboy or whatever being overly gay. That guy was one of the funniest, just the way, he wasn't trying to be overly gay, but just his walk and everything, you knew what he was trying to act like. And, you know, Paul Thomas Anderson says, well, that's more how the time was. I don't remember, I don't know. I remember movies depicting, yes. I remember movies from the early 70s depicting homosexuals as really not in a good light. I mean, if you want to look at modern people my age now, 50s, who are growing up on movies from the 70s, we would say our first, you know, introduction to homosexuals was Hollywood's completely horrible depiction of them. I mean, how much Freebie and the Bean when this gay guy's in a bathtub and Freebie and the Bean, James Caan and Alan Arkin walk in and they're just disgusted and they just start abusing this guy like, oh my God, they're just abusing him and calling him names, and it's just, and they make him so over the top gay. It's just, that's where I learned what, you know, that's from, you know, when you get to, you know, high school, you're calling homosexuals bad names because we were raised on it, and, you know, my father didn't talk to me about that stuff, but I saw it in the movies, so yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson's right, but I don't think making a movie in 2021 had to be showing you, oh, this is how they made movies in 73. Wasn't that funny? I don't think he had to do that. Again, there you go again. Something else he didn't have to do. One good thing, another thing I could say about this movie that's good, there's no mistakes in it. Like, you could believe every part. Like, there's nothing ridiculous about this movie. There's nothing over the top. Like, a lot of movies I see and I go, you know, ridiculous. Like, it's stupid, it's childish, it would never happen, it's totally over the top. That, it gets me out of the film, that I can't give it a good, you know, thumbs up, because I'm just not that, you know, those scenes draw me out of the film. That's why I don't really like blue screen, CGI movies, green screen, CGI extravaganzas where everything looks phony and fake in the background and it's big, you know, like these ridiculous movies like 300 or something, and I don't like superhero movies. And yeah, so that's probably why I don't like a lot of these movies. So because of that. But this movie rang true. It's a slice of life. You could see this happening and you could see yourself in the middle of it and believing everything you're seeing. There's nothing that rings untrue in this. And there's nothing ridiculous in this, and it's all pretty good, but I wish it was going somewhere else. And again, if she was 21, he was 17, it would have been received better by me and probably by others. Definitely. If she would have ended up with an adult at the end and remained friends with him, that would have been received way better with others. I put this up next to a movie like Rushmore. You ever remember Rushmore? Wes Anderson's, no relation to Paul Thomas Anderson. Wes Anderson made a movie called Rushmore, where this 15-year-old kid was in love with a teacher. She hanging out with him. Not hanging out with him, but he'd invite her to things, and she'd come like an adult would. But you could tell she was uncomfortable, and she was not going to do anything with him. And he was kind of hanging around her, and she knew he had a crush on her, of course. But then she ended up going out with the Bill Murray character, who was probably 25 years older than her. But that's not the point. The point is they're both adults. And he ended up getting pissed, of course. But at the end, he just accepted their relationship because he's friends with both of them, and he just remained friends with both of them. That would have been great here. I don't know why Paul Thomas Anderson decided that was okay. This is kind of a modern-day Harold and Maude, if you ever watched that film, and that was like an indie film. Definitely uncomfortable, not for everybody, not Academy Award. Another thing about this film, got 91% on Rotten Tomatoes because the critics just love everything Paul Thomas Anderson does. They spew ejaculate at the mention of Paul Thomas Anderson's making a new film. Because to me, you got to look at the films by themselves. You just can't look at the director. This is not one of his best. This is not 91% Rotten Tomatoes. This is the audience gave it, the fan review gave it 68% positive. That's more in line with what it would be. For me, it's even lower. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give this movie a 5.7. It fails. I'm sorry. And it fails because it's boring and it's inappropriate and it's uncomfortable. And there's a lot of things that just don't have to be there. That just didn't fit. And it didn't go anywhere. And at the end, in reality, something bad's going to happen really soon. Like fucking Orange is the New Black, a jail scene or something. Anyway, again, I want to just let me know, I'm not being holier than thou. I don't care about the relationship. When I was young, when I was 15, there were a lot of 20, 18-year-old girls that I would lust after, and I'd be like, hey, you know, and they look at me like, get the fuck out of here, kid, you know, and rightfully so. On that note, that's all I have to say about this. 5.7. It's cinematography great, acting really good, direction great. Yeah, boring, long, meandering. Is that a good word for it? Long scenes of drivel, going nowhere. Yeah, so that's all I got to say about that. Anyway, for the Rabid Dogs Unleashed, this has been JP Alexander, and until next time, ciao.